Pruning Japanese maple for bonsai is really easy, and you only actually need to ask one simple question every single time you look at either this maple or indeed any of your maples, in fact any of your trees in spring. One question. And today we're going to explore that one question. We're going to look over 3, 4, 5 different Japanese maples and we're going to discuss it. Many points will come from it, but it still comes back to just one simple question. And for those of you who can't be bothered to watch the rest of the video, that simple question is, what am I trying to achieve? So let's find out what exactly I am trying to achieve with these maples. Hi, it's Xavier, and welcome to my bonsai retreat, and probably welcome to the most exciting time of the bonsai year for many of us. All of us have watched our deciduous Japanese maple or other deciduous trees spring into life, leaves exploding out as they put all the energy that's been stored down here through the winter up and through the branches out into those leaf buds so that they can bring in all that exciting energy they need from our glorious UK sun. We don't get a lot of it, but you know what? We've had a lot so far. And whether it be this forest or indeed this blood red Acer palmatum, all of them have the same question in common, whether it be in early stages of development or indeed that finished bonsai. What exactly do you want to achieve by your pruning? So, as I say, we're going to go walk around the garden. We're going to pick 4 of my developing Japanese maple. We're going to have a look at that forest you've just seen, and I'm going to demonstrate the different sort of pruning I apply, explain why, and just show you exactly how easy it is to do your pruning in spring once all these leaves have exploded into life and are pulling in that energy. Now, in my last video, I did a garden tour. I pointed out a number of these maples that I said we'd have a look at in this video. So let's see if I can remind myself exactly which one drew my attention. And there's loads of maples. Do you know what? The first thing you've got to do is have a look at things like this and say, do I really want those weeds in there? And the answer is no, we don't want weeds, because weeds are competing for all that energy and root space that's in the soil. So we do need to do our weeding. In fact, we also need to do some fertilizing, but more of that in a moment. The tree that caught my attention, they all need work, was, I think, this one. So let's take this back up to the blue screen where we can have a good look and discuss exactly what it is I want to achieve with this one. But there was another one I think we brought up during that tour. Yep, here it is. It was this one, because it has wire on it, but also it's got a big weed we've got to pull out. But we need to decide again. Simple, not as much growth, but I still need to decide what it is I want to achieve. Do I need the wire? Do I need to replace the wire? So we'll take this up again and have a look and discuss this one. And in fact, looking at this one with the great growth on it, this is ideal to talk about sacrifice branches and when they're not in a good place. Shall we get it? And then I think it's just really a case of I'll pick one at random. This has got a lot of growth. The principles are always the same. Just a simple question. What am I trying to achieve? So we've picked ourselves out 4 trees, and it's probably worth noting actually all 4 of these are from the exact same batch of 1-year-old seedlings that I picked up in 2014. They've all developed at different rates, and as we go through this video, you'll probably see and understand why that's happened. It can be sometimes very, very daunting. We've got one here that's got loads and loads of leaf shoots, loads and loads of growth. And then we've got one here where truly the dandelion has actually got more growth. Does that mean the question's any different? No, the question's exactly the same. What am I trying to achieve? I'm definitely not trying to achieve flowers with this dandelion, so that has got to go. Let's ask ourselves the question, what do we need first of all? And I know we've asked this many, many times before, but the first thing we need is to make sure we've got our tools. We make sure those tools are sharp, We've got a nice set of sharp leaf pruning because we are going to be going in and pruning off leaves at their petioles. We are also going to be doing some work with our concave cutters to try and take trunks or branches back to reduce scarring, and to that extent we're also going to be using we are also going to be using cut paste or cut putty. And as you know, I get all my cut putty from Notion Bonsai. Thanks very much, Adam. So we'll be using his new green environment. So now we're going to be using his new green cut putty. And on top of that, we also need to make sure we've got other things we're going to need to do. I always do, whenever I do some pruning on a tree or work on a tree, I try and time that in with a bit of liquid fertilizer. I've got my 2-litre primer pump bottle ready. And for those of you who are wondering, at the moment this year, as well as the Jadam organic stuff that I got from Gary, which is running out, I also use a all-purpose concentrate Miracle Grow or indeed a Super Thrive. Both of them I've used effectively, and it's just about making up the right quantities that are needed, and I apply it as a liquid fertilizer. You can also use your bio golds and all other sort of solid chunks, put them in tea bags, whatever, pin them to your trees. I tend not to do it because with 700 trees I've got enough tea bags, and I certainly can't afford that bio gold, which is indeed gold. And of course it goes without saying that I also use Bonsai camellia oil. It's a antibacterial, fungicidal, insect repellent, and I use this to clean off my tools once I've finished work with them, so they don't get all sticky and gummy. No one wants a sticky gummy tool. We'll take this one first, and mainly because there's not as much foliage, it should be easier and simpler to show you what I've been trying to achieve, and it also demonstrates one of those is a big, in fact 2 of those points is a big tick. So you've heard me say it before, what are we trying to achieve with growing branches? We either want to create a thicker trunk, thicker primary or secondary branches, i.e. that means this is the trunk. In fact, before we go any further, let's just remove this dandelion, shall we? So if we look at this, we've got a nice big thick trunk with nice gnarly bark. As it tapers up, probably it would be nice to have that to be a couple of millimeters thicker. The way I can achieve that is to continue to let any branches growing up continue to grow outwards, so the energy is still pumped up there. Imagine the situation where from here we almost went straight to there. If that was the case, then you just haven't got the taper differential happening. It's not proportionate. You would need to leave the growth go, and that would be a case of just let stuff continue to grow out. You probably wouldn't prune anything, except for one reason. And that reason would actually relate to much higher up, where we've got 1, 2, and a third small growth here. And if we're going to let everything grow, what we don't want to do is create swelling lumps or clumps, because we've got more than 2 coming from a single point. So we'll always go around and remove 3rd or 4th branches from groups, so that we can maintain just 2 from one junction. Stops any adverse swelling happening. So that would mean I've got here, if I want to keep this growing, I want to keep this thickening, I've got 1 branch here, that's fine. Moving here to 2 branches, that's fine, they can continue to grow. Again, we look here, 1, 2, 3. So I know I've got to remove one of the branches. So let's have a look and see which one it would be. And if we look at the way they come out, we've got this one that's between here and here. It's sort of, it's not the prettiest of angles there. It's quite circular, it's quite a U shape. Don't normally like that. We've actually got quite a small angle here, less than 30 degrees, with nice healthy growth. But again, if you remove that, that would still not look right. So generally, the one you would remove is this one in the middle, leaving these 2. The only thing I'd say is, looking at this, I'm not sure that I want a branch going upwards. So I may actually, so the normal thing is you'd remove one, the one you'd remove would be the middle one. And looking at that, potentially if my tree was only ever going to be that high, that would be all right, and I'd leave it at that. I would also remove any stubs that I see, just clean it up. And again, some of you are saying, Xavier, you still haven't said, what are you trying to achieve? For this one, I'm happy that this is going to be nothing more than probably 6 inches. So we're looking at either a marmate or a small show-in. So with that in mind, I know that this is half my trunk. This is the rest of it. I want to thicken this a bit more, and I will be growing the tree probably from up here. So do I actually need this branch here? For me, I don't want it. Now, that's not to say that it would be wrong to keep it, but I don't want that one. Some would argue that that indeed could actually aid in thickening, and I wouldn't necessarily need to keep it. I could keep it as a sacrifice branch, and a sacrifice branch is one where you're allowing energy to be drawn through it, which is allowing then more thickening to happen here. So that would be a reason to consider keeping a branch on, and all that you would do is wait until you reach a certain point. In fact, let me show you exactly what I mean by sacrifice branch, thinking about it. This one here, again, what is it going to be? It's going to be a marmate or a little show-in. So it's never going to be much taller than this. But this side here was a lot thinner a couple of years ago. So what I did is I've left one of the outer branches to continue to grow on. The aim of that is to continue to thicken this branch until it matched proportionally. It just needs to be a little bit bigger than the ones that are higher up. So proportionally well, it felt a lot better. And then all I'm going to do is come in and remove it. So what was I trying to achieve? I was trying to achieve thickening of this right hand side of the tree so it matched the left hand side. I did that by allowing this branch to grow out 2.5 feet. Once it's achieved the right thickness, it's done its aim, I've cut it off. This will then become cuttings. Now, often you'll hear being spoken about when we talk about pruning our deciduous is, is it energy positive? And it's all sort of very technical jargon, but what it's basically saying is, has the tree had a chance to recover all the energy it used in sending out all these new shoots? Otherwise, all these leaves that are brightly opening up to the sun, have they pulled in enough energy to allow this to send out another push of growth once we cut it? And normally, once we get to that sort of late April, first few weeks of May, we can safely go in there and prune knowing that the tree has got loads of energy. Now, the second thing we'd be trying to achieve with our growth is wound healing. And this is probably, again, a perfect example. Originally, there was a branch here that went straight off and up. And what you want is to have as much growth going through here so that it allows it to callus over properly and heal. Once it's healed, once it's covered that, you then don't need any additional branches around it. If you're happy with it, if you've got another branch here or whatever, you can cut that off. It's done it. So it's done the wound healing. And again, if I'm looking, I've got the thickness I want, if I've got all that right, and on top of that, the wound is healed, then I don't need that extra strong pull or draw of energy coming through there. So again, I can now look at it and say, I might actually start thinking about developing the secondary and tertiary branching. I don't need to let shoots go flying out for 6 or 7 feet. On this maple, I've been trying to heal up this big branch that was cut so that it all filled in and rolled over. It's rolled over really, really well. I kept these branches just to keep the sap flow coming through there, although of course we've still got this big branch here. But these are examples of branches that are not needed for the design per se, but I kept them going because I just wanted to get good all-round wound healing and roll over here. And ideally, if you had a branch lower down, which I didn't in this case, then that would also aid. So you'd keep little branches, a bit like on here, got a little branch growing from here, and that was part and parcel to help with the healing around there. Although in this example, probably a little bit of a weeny branch, probably wouldn't do much healing in that case. But imagine this one, a lot longer and thicker. That would allow you to help heal anything that's going on down there from a lower branch removal. So, if we're not trying to make the trunk any thicker, if we're not trying to make the tree any taller, or indeed, if we're not trying to wound heal, what other reason could we be keeping a branch on a tree? A bit like a sacrifice branch, really, like this trident maple. I've wired out this branch. It's never going to be part of any sort of design for a bonsai. You can do it on a smaller scale, But this is going to be an air layer. So at some point I will be putting an air layer on and the branch will be coming off. So again, another reason for keeping a branch or growing it out thicker or wiring a branch is indeed because you want to use it as a second tree. And often you'll see that on junipers and maple bonsai, especially the bigger ones. So hopefully you've got a feel for sacrifice branches, whether they be for doing air layers, indeed whether they're for healing, or indeed they're for thickening your branches. Once you've established that's not the case, you can say, do I want this branch at all? In my case, I definitely don't want this branch, so I'm going to take it out and remove it. Again, no wastage, into a thing of water. In this case, I want to make sure that I seal the wound. Make sure I've got a clean cut, and then just put my cut putty over the top. That protects it from any infections or antibacterial fungus or anything like that getting in there and ruining it. And what you're trying to get is some nice healing and rollover on the site. So then the third thing you're really trying to achieve by doing pruning, whether it be pruning back to the next set of bud points here or here, is you're trying to promote back budding. And that's really the third thing that we're trying to achieve with our pruning. Obviously, if my tree isn't going to be much bigger than this, then having great big growth here isn't necessary. I'm not trying to thicken anything. I'm not trying to heal anything. So actually now I need to look back and have a look and see. I'm either going to want to get back budding here, and with the Japanese maple, you are not going to get back budding on this internodal gap here. You're either going to get it here at this junction point, or here, or indeed you're going to have to go all the way to here. And again, if you look at your internodal distances, which are the distance between either the branches splitting off or where your next set of leaves are, that is far too long. So we don't want that. So I would definitely be cutting back to there. When we look at this branch here, although it's got lovely loads of green, what I actually want are the latent buds here, or the dormant buds here, to be activated. And some people may say this seems a bit severe, but indeed it works out fine. Here we've got fine growth. I don't need to do anything here. I actually don't want this going all the way up here, so I'm going to remove that. I'm going to leave a centimetre stub to allow for dieback. I won't do any cut paste on there. This one I'm actually going to cut back as well, back to there, and I may well eventually cut that one off. I want to see what buds I get from this point here, or indeed this point here. Be nice to get something going out in that sort of direction. What I don't want is the big internodal distance. And the way I judge it is if I look at the distance from there to there on the thicker branch, from my point of view, on a tree this size, I don't want anything that's going to be longer than that distance. So I'd expect my next internode to be no more than half this. So I basically need to get new growth from back here. Again, if we look higher at this branch here, moves up, we've got a small internodal distance there. Actually, that one there is longer than that there. It doesn't actually look right, but for now I'm willing to keep it. We've got nice shoots coming from here, and then right in close there, there's a lovely short internode. To try and get that to activate and send out new buds, I actually need to remove all that growth there. Really, if I wanted to do something properly on this, I would need to actually cut this back to there to promote new buds from here. And if it's healthy, it will do that. Going further up the tree, we're thinking I've got this lovely growth up here. I really don't want to cut it off, but is it achieving anything? Is it achieving what I want? Bearing in mind my tree height's going to be here. Don't need thickening, don't need healing. What I need is the back budding and the smaller internodal distances. So my only option is to go all the way back and cut them off. And if I have a look at that, bearing in mind that that is quite short, really, I actually want to ask it, I really could consider cutting that, but for now I won't. I'll leave the two there. I've got some healthy leaf growth here. That is the pruning that I'll do for a tree that I know is not going to be much taller than that has got all the right dimensions I want, is healthy, In fact, all I'm trying to do now is develop the tertiary branching for it before I eventually get to repot. And that really is how you develop, certainly your maples, you develop your trunk. Do all your wound healing, make sure you've got it to the right height, then you do your primary, secondary branches, and finally your tertiary branches. You do all that with these. A lot of people say that you need to seal the ends off. You can use just a cut paste. This is a Japanese brand, and you literally just take a bit and just tip it on all the ends of these. But I find if you leave at least a centimetre or so of dye back, it'll just dye back to there, and we should be seeing new buds coming up there probably in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. But we'll show that in an update pruning video in, say, a month's time. But look, I think that's going to have some lovely, nice, gentle movement. Great thickness, proportion-wise, it's great. All it needs is that back budding, those buds to appear, so that I can get some decent tertiary branching growing. And then, well, we'll see it in 2027. Once you've got your tertiary structure, then you really need to start doing your early pinching to keep the internodes very short and to stop there being the big long flushes of growth. But that's for a future video. So there's only one more thing that needs to happen to this, and it is massively important. In fact, there are 2 things. But to find out those 2 things and to see how we get on with the other 2 maples, and indeed that forest, which is nowhere near as bad as this one here, then you're going to need to wait till next Tuesday, because I've got loads of work to do in between. I've got Yella's visit to get sorted, organised. I still haven't hoovered the grass. I've got loads of weeding to do, so I'm splitting this video. See you on Tuesday. Oh, and if you do want to see a great video about maples, that's the one to watch. Otherwise, happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.